Excuse me!
Man, never in my life did I think I would be saying these words. But just recently, we received the best Ace Attorney game in the series by quite a long shot, I'd say. So I'm gonna talk about the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles that came out for Nintendo Switch and PlayStation 4? Question mark? Did it actually? Maybe not. Maybe just Steam. Actually, don't know. But yeah, we're gonna talk about the Great Ace Attorney, or Dai Gyakuten Saiban. So I might be calling these games DGS and DGS2. I'm kind of used to that, but so let me just preface this a little bit. One, I am a huge fan of Ace Attorney. Like I've played pretty much every Ace Attorney game besides Investigations 2. I've started it like twice, but I've never gotten too far into it. But every other game I am very well versed in. I love those games. I've loved them for, oh my god, like a decade now. I got into them in high school. They were a huge part of just like my love for story-driven games. They were probably some of the first games that I really got into that were really heavily story-driven, where like I followed the story very closely. You know, it wasn't just like, oh, the story's fun or the story's cool, you know, whatever. It was a story. It's a story game. It is a visual novel, for better or for worse. I don't know how that definition is associated anymore, you know, if it's a good or bad thing, but whatever. It is most definitely a visual novel. And they're great. And the Ace Attorney series in general is great. If you wanted a too long didn't read about the entire series, it's totally worth, you know, at least dipping your toes into it. It's a great series. And if it will result in you playing this game, by all means, it is totally worth it. It's worth the hundreds of hours you might spend. Actually, I shouldn't say hundreds. Maybe like dozens of hours you'll spend playing the series. It's really good. It's really fucking good. But yeah, the height of the series has always been Trials and Tribulations, the third Phoenix Wright game. Iconic video game. So fucking good. And it was a huge, like, what do you call it? Like, pedestal or sort of like pillar of visual novel games in general. You know, me and my friends would talk. We got into all kinds of those kind of games back in high school. We played the Zero Escape series, which I got really into. The Layton series I got really into. Shu Takumi's other game, Ghost Trick. All those games were really like a big thing between me and my friends. We all played them. But Trials and Tribulations was never beat. It was always the best. And even the fourth game in the series, Apollo Justice, I love that game. And I think it gets a lot of hate for some reason. I think it's unwarranted to hell and back. It's ridiculous how much people dislike that game. Oh man, I'll get into why I think it is in a few minutes. But point is, I like Apollo a lot, but it's not as good as 3 in my opinion. It falls in a few areas, but it's a cool progression of the series. 4 is a lot bigger. 4 is a lot has bigger stakes, has a more dramatic story. It feels like a natural progression from 3. It has a more interconnected plot, which is important. I'll get to. But yeah, and then the 3DS ones came out, and I didn't love the 3DS ones. 5 and 6 are mediocre at best, in my opinion. They, like, if, let's just say, on a grand scheme of things, let's just say Phoenix Wright 3 is like a 9 out of 10 game. 5 and 6 are like 6 out of 10s, maybe 5. Phoenix Wright 5 might be a 5 out of 10. I really don't love that game. People probably think I'm harsh, but there's a lot of things I felt like it took steps backwards in, especially in its storytelling. I thought it was playing it way safer. The story beats were just like weird and boring and just not as engaging at all. The individual cases were not that interesting. It just didn't feel like Phoenix Wright. It didn't feel like what I should expect after playing 3 and 4. And there is a reason for that. Apparently, the teams that make Ace Attorney, there was one group that were making the investigation games, which are spin-off games with Miles Edgeworth. They went on to make 5 and 6 because Shu Takumi got caught up in working on Professor Layton versus Phoenix Wright, which is also bad, by the way. Not that the others are bad. That one is actually bad. I don't like that game at all. I think it's like mechanically fine, and it's got some fun like gameplay segments, but man, that game's story sucks. Like real bad. Don't like it. Don't like it at all. Just saying. If you like it, that's cool, but keep it away from me. Keep it away from me. No, I'm kidding. It's just disappointed me on so many levels. Just so many fucking levels. Anyway, point is, Shu Takumi helped make that game. And then because it was taking so long, they made 5 without him. and they started making 6. So Shu Takumi made spin-off games, which are these. Wow, how it all comes together, right? So I played DGS1 on my 3DS a few months ago, probably like 5 or 6 months ago, and it was amazing. I was blown away that we had never received that. There's a fan translation, by the way, which I was blown away we had never received it, and it was a big thing that we had never received this game. There's a few Ace Attorney games that never came out here, and that's one of them. But then it got announced while I think I was either right after I beat it or right as I was beating it. It got announced, and both games were going to be in a collection. So I thought I'd wait until it releases to play DGS2 or Great Ace Attorney 2, whatever. And I'm not saying I'm glad I did, but it's nice to have that little space between them. But I just finished 2 a few days ago, and oh my god. One's good. One is really good. Like, one of the best Ace Attorney games, but 2 is so good. It's like on another level of quality in terms of Ace Attorney that I didn't think the series would even ever hit. Like, in my head, 3 was always the pinnacle of this series, and it like felt like the games were kind of like they never could hit that like lightning in a bottle again. The thing is, it wasn't lightning in a bottle. It was just the teams getting better at what they're doing. And again, people have reservations for Apollo, but Apollo Justice was a bigger, better game in most ways. There were like story beats that didn't hit as hard as maybe 3 did, but there was also 3 games of anticipation leading up to 3, So there was a lot of like stakes with every character in that game that made it a lot more emotionally impactful. And I think they did a really good job on doing that with DGS2. They made it so the story's like resolution at the end is so impactful because you spent so long with these characters, and it just feels like this big interconnected story. And that's one of the big parts about this game too that makes it so special is, like I was saying, Apollo felt like it was more of an interconnected story, which was really cool. Like there was individual cases, but there was one central plot that everything was leading up to, and the payoff was pretty cool, in my opinion. This game, it's 2 games worth of, sprinkling story leading up to a final plot line in the very end of the second game, and it is amazing. It is unbelievable. The twists and the turns about everything involved with it. It's like it was meticulously planned from the very beginning, and you can totally tell it's unbelievable. It's truly unbelievable. It's one of the best visual novel games I've played like ever, and definitely, and this is a harsh statement considering how much people like some of these games. It is definitely the best Ace Attorney game. I'm saying it right now. It's crazy. Again, it is insane to me. The title of this video, the whole thesis of this video is I never thought this was going to happen. I legitimately just never thought that Ace Attorney could give me that feeling that I got playing Trials and Tribulations. That like genuine, just wrapped up in this game. I was totally invested, and it was just worth it. It was all worth it. It was so rewarding and fun, and the characters are so good. It also looks really nice. This game is a real looker for the Switch, and I guess it was on 3DS, but I just love the 3D models in these games. They have so much personality. This game isn't like littered with anime cutscenes either, which I really appreciate. I don't know why that bugs me so much. There are like games that implement like anime cutscenes, and they just kind of look off because I think the 3D models look good enough. They like are trying to replicate that anime style, and they're doing a great job. I remember Persona 5, I thought it was like distracting. I always thought the modeled cutscenes were always so much better like than the anime cutscenes. I never understood why they always opted to do that. This game has way more of just the normal cutscenes. There's a few anime cutscenes, but the music is amazing too. First game's music, I was like, it's got pretty good music. I do think the songs are pretty awesome, but Ace Attorney has a high standard for music. Like, you have to hit some highs to get to the peak of music. But man, there are some moments in DGS2 where the music hits so fucking hard, especially near the end. I wasn't expecting it at all, and it's amazing. It's so good. Oh man, again, just so crazy. I'm trying to gather my thoughts because I'm kind of just rambling right now, but really point is, play this game if you're a fan of Ace Attorney. Even if you're not a fan of Ace Attorney, one thing that's really cool about this game is it really exists on its own really well. It's like, it's in its own world, but you know, there's no existing characters. It takes place in the early 1900s, which actually I should mention this too. But yeah, point is you can play it at any point. It's not one that you can't jump into, but I will warn you that if you play this one, the rest will seem probably a little disappointing in comparison. They have their own merits. They're good in their own ways, but it probably will never hit the height of this game. So if you're looking to feel that like progression, I would play them in order. But don't play the other 3DS ones. IMO. Well, you can play them if you want, but like if you're looking for like the best Ace Attorney experience, 1, 2, 3, maybe Investigations. Well, 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe Investigations. I haven't played 2 yet. I'll get back to people on that. And then DGS 1 and 2. Just like, and 3DS games if you really want to, but they're whatever. But yeah, I was going to say that this game's setting and the attention to detail with its historical angle gives this, the best way I can describe it, it gives this game such like a class to it, you know? It's like a classy game. Like there's like actual historical relevance to things, and they did their research, and there are these things that will happen in the games where I'm like, was that really a thing? And I'll look it up and I'm like, oh yeah, like in the first game, it's not even a spoiler or anything. In the first game, you can investigate like a window and it's all boarded up in the apartment. And I was just kind of doing my investigation thing. And they were like, and someone mentioned like, well, you know, because of the window tax in London, people board up their windows so they don't have to pay the taxes on it. And I'm like, window tax? Is that a thing? Like window tax? Like, what is that? I looked it up and yeah, lo and behold, like that exact era of time was when that was happening. And they mention in the game that it was like, in the process of being like what do you call it, like absolved, or like, you know, the tax was being fought, and it was like that is literally when the early 1900s is exactly when that tax was fought and like revoked, I guess. I don't know what the word for that is. Changed, like the law was changed. It's like, or the tax law, I don't know, was changed. And I'm like, that's awesome. Like the fact that they did that research, it was probably fun. Like I could see that being fun. Like you think of a concept, you do your research like heavily into this specific time period, this specific setting, and it's like rewarding because it makes the world feel so much more realistic. And it's nice that I have the ability to look up this stuff now, because again, stuff in the later parts of the first game, there's concepts that I was like, was that really like that early? And I looked it up, I'm like, yeah, that was really something that was invented back then. I had no idea, and I learned something. And like, what's more rewarding than that, when you learn something without even knowing it? Wow. But it is really cool. And I don't usually have like I do have an appreciation for it, but it's usually not my thing, you know, like the turning on my lamp, the like historical angle of stuff, even England in general. I'm not like particularly not fond of it. I don't really care. It's just like I don't really have any association with England specifically. But you know what? Sherlock Holmes, I'm more interested in Sherlock Holmes than I've ever been in my life, and I'm more interested in like England's history. And you know what? If this came from somebody with a passion for that time period, that setting in general, then they did a great job. They did a genuinely great job. And by the way, speaking of Sherlock Holmes, or Sherlock Sholmes, he is unbelievable in these games. People say that this is one of the most accurate representations of Sherlock Holmes, like in media. Well, maybe not in total media, besides like the media that he encompasses, but like he's very silly. But apparently that is very much the way he was written in those original books, which is fun. And he's very cocky and fun. It's just a very fun character. I did not expect that. For some reason, when I'd see previews for this game, images for this game, I thought he'd be the most obnoxious, either the most like arrogant, like kind of the way like Holmes is like depicted in like, you know, the shows that were popular on Tumblr and stuff, like always one step ahead, like, you know, constantly like genius mastermind, like can't beat him. But like he's kind of just a goober who has an act for like telling stories and being like charismatic, and it like shows, and it's great. And it's really funny, and he has like the best moments in the game, and he's like, when I say very funny, like genuinely fucking funny, and which is surprising because Ace Attorney kind of has that thing. I always describe this a certain way. It's kind of like, I don't know if you remember when you're in school, but you'll watch like an educational video or some like video on the TV, and like the dumbest jokes will be so like the the stupidest, like, you know, easiest jokes will be the funniest because you don't like expect it to be very funny. And I always felt that with Ace Attorney. It was never like laugh out loud funny. It wasn't trying to be funny, but like, or it was sometimes trying to be funny, but it wasn't like always landing. It was usually like dumb jokes, but every once in a while they would have a joke that you would laugh at. But like, if it was in any other context, if it was like in a comedy show or this joke was like told to you, it probably wouldn't make you laugh. It's just like sort of the charm of the game. This game actually has jokes that I would like in no context I thought were very funny, like genuinely well written and funny, which is surprising. I just didn't get that from any other Ace Attorney, at least from what I remember. It's been a long time since I played them. But the sub is, or the translation is really good too. It's funny how I have both perspectives. I played the fan translation for the first game and then the actual translation for the second game. And they're both really good. I honestly didn't really even tell that big of a difference. I think the official localization is a little bit more careful or a little bit more meticulous with how it writes British dialogue. So it feels a lot more authentic in that aspect. But the fan translation is much more authentic in not censoring itself in that way. There's a few choice words that people have for different regions, you know, different races and stuff. And it's like not the most like politically correct way to say them, and it's like you probably shouldn't say that. Obviously it's pretty bad, but like back then, yeah, they would say that. Like that is genuinely realistic, but they're not going to do that in a game released on Nintendo Switch, you know. Like, and it's like it's words with historical bad historical significance that you probably shouldn't say. But it was historically said at one point. So, and they do that in the fan translation. They say words like that a few times. There's a few like choice words that I noticed, and I was like, oh, should they have said that? But yeah, point is the new translation gets rid of that, but they, almost as a compromise. I don't want to say it's like purposely compromised, but like as a compromise in some ways, it feels really authentic. Like the way things are worded, even the very tiny bits of grammar, the like wording order, like the way they say sentences and shit is very, very authentically European, or at least English. Like I was believable, even like to a point where I'm like, is that how they used to say things like that? And it's like, I'm sure they read a lot of literature back then, including Sherlock Holmes books, and I'm sure they took a lot of inspiration from that, or they had people who knew what they were doing. They probably just had people who lived in England and have heard people talk like that. I don't know. It was probably that way, but either way, it was good. It was just solid. But anyway, I just kind of wanted to gush about this game. It's been on my mind. It's extremely, extremely good. Just really good. I'm just so happy. Man, 2 games in a row, man. Psychonauts 2 and this game. Games that I guess I didn't. I thought Psychonauts 2 was going to be good, but like it just makes me happy that we're getting such good video games, you know? Like games that you just kind of forget. It reminds you of why you love them in the first place, I guess. I think I said that in my Psychonauts video. But it really does. It reminds me of why I loved Ace Attorney so much, why it's so much fun, why it's so exciting to play them and get other people to play them. So, yeah. So do me a favor and play it, you know? You don't want my experience to be lesser, right? You should play it. It's doing me a favor, and it's doing you a favor. So if you play it because of me, write my name down on the fucking game case so you never forget, okay? I'm kidding. Don't do that. Anyway. Until my next video, I gush about a video game, inevitably, because apparently this year is just banger after banger, right? I still gotta get, like, Eastward, which is, like, a new indie game that looks fucking awesome. Maybe that game will blow my goddamn mind. Who knows? But anyway, I will talk to you guys later.